Rick, I'm an alcoholic. Rich pinned me down at a Monday night men's stag meeting and asked me to lead this meeting. And, I haven't been here for about 3 years. I used to be the not so good GSR or something. I can't remember what it was. I never went to the meetings or anything. But I felt like I was in the middle of the group. I was like one of those big stalks right in the middle, man. And, people give me crap. Dave gave me crap for not wearing a tie and coat. And, I'm not from that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I was going to put on a long raincoat and channel Sam Kinison. But I won't. Some of you are too young to remember. He was a funny guy. He's one of them. Anyway, here I am up here at the podium talking like I got something to say, and the only thing I have to say that's of any meaning comes out of this right here. That's the most important thing I can talk about. Congratulations, Patty, 36 years. Wow. I thought it said 86. She had the thing turned. Wow, I don't know. Anybody is. I think Clancy has 86 years. Anyway, I'm a joker. I go for the laughs. I try to get the nervousness out of the way by make myself feel comfortable, making you feel comfortable with me. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. What I have to say is my story and my opinion and how this program has worked for me over the years. I'm going to tell you a little bit of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I want to welcome the new people. I hope you stay. I hope you stay. I see some of you guys at the other meetings, and this is it. This is the last house in the block. We don't refer out from here. This is it. If you make it to AA, you found the pinnacle of where you go for recovery, and this is it. This is it. And thank God I found it. Thank God. And Patty said, I'm blessed. I've been given gifts that. Man, I just can't believe it. I came here, and a friend of mine who's now gone, I knew back from Annapolis, Maryland, where I got sober, Ronnie, used to say, I was looking everywhere for this thing all my life, and it turned up in the last place I would ever thought to look, and that was inside of me. And he never looked inside to see how it applied to him. Another guy that I know said, it was actually Ronnie too. He said, I came here, I wanted a life raft, you guys threw me a yacht. And that's pretty much what happened. I mean, I'm here my life is beyond describably good today, okay? But I'm going to go back and tell you a little bit what it was like. In 1971, I had already been locked up quite a bit. I had already seen a lot of action. I started out with, flowers and daisies and Woodstock and, love and peace. And then I ended up carrying a gun. How do you do it? And so I was like a bad guy. I was a bad guy. And in fact, they diagnosed me as a sociopath. And they put me in this place called Spring Grove State Hospital for the Criminally Insane when I was 20. And said, you're never going to get out of here. Because some stuff went down, bad stuff. And I don't remember it. Most of my life I don't remember. And they said, yeah, you're never going to get out of here. This is it. This is how many miles you get used to it. They were feeding me through a slot, green tile room, heavy gauge steel screens, mean staff, it's like a dungeon, And I'd gotten there and I thought, oh my God, and nobody was coming to get me. Nobody was springing me out of there. I was like, something's wrong here, And the reason was that they didn't want me out of there. They wanted me in there. That's where I belonged. And I'd earned that space for my behavior and the way things had happened in my life. And man, I'll tell you, I got one of those little moments of clarity while I was there. And I got this thing about, wow, I'm in big trouble. I quit believing my own bullshit. I couldn't convince myself that this was just a run of bad luck anymore. I was in there and I was 20 years old and I was going to be there for the rest of my life. And I thought, oh my God. And I meant, oh my God. I got on my knees and I said, if there's a God, help me. And that's the alcoholic prayer. If you haven't done it yet, it's coming. It's real simple. It's real basic. It's help. And you mean it. And you mean it from right down to the marrow of your bones. You mean it because you know you need help and that your bullshit isn't going to work anymore. It's all run out, So I did. I got on my knees and I prayed. I thought, okay, nobody saw me, locked up in isolation cell. I hope nobody sees me praying. That's funny, man. That is funny. Because I was a non-entity. I had a number and I was in there and that was it. Well, it didn't end up that way. I wouldn't be standing here, obviously. But what happened was that they changed the age of majority in the state of Maryland at that time from 18 to 21. And so I got out on a legal thing on kind of just like, okay, we can't lock you up as an adult, so get out of here. And they would send all the guys from the Baltimore Penitentiary there because there was also a medical facility, and I was sharing space with those guys, and that was nice. They would eat razor blades to get out of prison, and they'd get into the hospital by eating razor blades. Good people, we got along. It was a bad time. And let me tell you, I come from a long line of alcoholics and chemically dependent people. I have a very highly refined strain of this disease. By the time I got it, it was the only way to live. In my family, in my immediate family, in my reach, the only way you could live was alcoholically. That's all you had. You didn't have any other rules for living. You had lying, cheating, stealing, drinking, anesthesia. And I was handed that on a platter because everybody in my life was doing it. And I thought, and see, I believe another thing too, and this is just my opinion, but I'm right a lot. I believe that codependency is the primary disease in this culture. Oh boy. Oh, don't leave, The reason I say that is because many of us come from that background, and that we live our lives responding to the behavior of alcoholics. As children, hey, my mother's breath smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. That was my mother's breath. Okay? If you want to talk about association, olfactory association, that's some pretty powerful shit. Mom is a drink and a smoke, And so my first drug was sugar. After that came nicotine. And then after that came everything else, so I could get my hands on. And I remember just not too many years ago making that realization that, holy crap, that's powerful association that I made. So I related to her on the level of an addict more than a child, and an alcoholic. And so I followed that through, and she gave me all the tools I needed, and I was running hard by the time I was 13, Family broke up, went in a bunch of different directions, and I falling over up here. Maybe I am Sam Kinison. My dad was in civil aviation. He was never there. My mom turned into a barmaid. My mom, She did the best she could. She raised 5 kids with absolutely nothing, no help from him, as best as she could, And, I'd like to say that I'd grown up with alcoholism, but the truth is I never grew up. I didn't grow up until I got here. And I'll get to that in a minute. I don't think that there's a lot of difference between most people in this culture on the level that I'm talking, and that is that some of us didn't come from alcoholic homes. I know that, and that's cool, and that's okay. I mean, that doesn't have to be a prerequisite for you to be here. I mean, you could have a perfectly normal family and wonderful surroundings and still end up just a big drunk, There's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. So, but the thing about me responding, see, my older sister never picked up a drink. She stayed on the side of, I'm going to fix you people. I'm going to get you guys straightened out. I got to cover up for you. I got to lie. I got to cheat. I got to steal. Okay, she's lying, cheating, and stealing. She's not even drinking. She's doing it for us. And that's what I went through. So they say that, codependency is addiction to the behavior of an addict or the alcoholic addiction to the behavior of an alcoholic. And I believe that's true. And for me, it was like, my sister wanted to say straight, screw this, man. I'm jumping in. It's called can't beat 'em, join 'em. And I did, and it worked. Wow, did it work. I picked that drink up, I picked up the drink. It tied up all the loose ends. It gave me some peace of mind, or what I thought was peace of mind then. It gave me the ability to do things like I'm doing now, as if I didn't care. And now the difference is I care, and I'm actually nervous, and I'm a little bit at a loss for words in some ways, sometimes. And so, like, the alcohol gave me everything I needed. Now, I grew up in the 60s. Okay, that was peace, love, Woodstock. My drug of choice was yours, okay? It was yours. Whatever you were drinking, whatever was being passed around, the pipe, the bottle, whatever it was, I took it. I never asked questions. I believed in the power of alcohol and other substances devoutly. I turned my will and my life over to the care of whatever was being passed around at a rock concert. That was my God. And sometimes back then it was pretty high octane stuff. I used to do a little tripping, and I do a lot of LSD, a lot of hallucinogenics, and I still have 2 brain cells left. I'm using tonight sparingly. It was a tough time. It was a tough time because we didn't back then. I mean, it was a party. Vietnam, we lost that war. I mean, people were pissed. It was just ugly, and oh my God. And so, it was like all these guys are coming back who devoted their life to saving this country, and they were being treated like trash. And so they joined us too. It was just a big party. And it was a party of just anesthesia. It was anesthesia. We were just going for the numb. That's all. If you can get in the car and drive to wherever you're going to get numb, that was good. But then you got numb, and then you stayed numb. Comfortably numb. And that's what we all wanted. And so my take on all that was that I'm probably indestructible. I can do this. I can drive cars and, see 3 or 4 images, Paisley windshields, and be ripped out of my mind. And I got away with it. I crashed a lot of cars. I got in a lot of fights. It was awful. The thing that happened that put me in Spring Grove was that I don't remember this, but apparently I decided it was a good idea to go out the back door of an ambulance on the Baltimore, Washington Beltway with 2 EMTs with me, and I don't remember that, but they got hurt really bad, and then there was some police action and other stuff happened, and I don't remember any of it. But 2 judges and 2 physicians signed me into Spring Grove. So, You already screwed up too much. I'd already gotten busted in Ocean City, Maryland. Back then, hash was a felony, and I got busted by this speed freak narc. Damn it. Okay, I'm over it. Right there in the boardwalk in Ocean City, and I got in big trouble for that. I qualify to be here. I'm not going to go into what it was like anymore because you know and I know what it was like, and and it's not like that anymore. Okay, but what happened was one of the conditions they gave me for getting out of Spring Grove was that I had 5 years parole probation. That I had to go to these alcoholic rehabilitation units in Hyattsville, Maryland. I had to get there, and I had to go, and I'd sit and listen to people talk. They'd lecture about this and that, and I'd go there, and I'd be just ripped. I used to use high-octane alcohol in the form of methamphetamine, and I used to inject it, and I used to really get ripped. And that worked, with alcohol. Alcohol was always present. Alcohol was my mother drug, okay? But I wasn't particular. And so I went to this thing, or I had to go, or I'd go to prison and stay there. I'd go ripped, I'd go just completely out of it, and sit and listen to these people talk, like maybe some of you are here tonight, and what's this guy talking about? I was just getting high kind of thing. And that's where I was at. And this guy got up, like me, a little younger than me actually, and told my story. He got up and he told my story. Now, I had been cut off by my dealer. I was sitting there twitching on a bad run of crystal, and I was drunk drunk and dirty, and don't you know. Oh, geez, I was a mess. And this guy got up and told my story. I was already paranoid to begin with. This guy gets up, and he's like reading my mail. So I did this, and I did this, and I used to kind of still have red stuck in my arm from a bad night. And my brother got killed. This is unbelievable. We talked about his family. This is too coincidental. So I went up and I talked to him after that. And he said, yeah, man, you may qualify for this program. And I thought, really? You let me in the club? He said, I'm going to have a guy pick you up tomorrow night and take you to an AA meeting. And that's where he was from. He represented AA. And he represented it well. He was a very good example of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous because that's mostly what he talked about. What was in that book, not so much about him, but I've got time to talk about me, so, hell, I'm going for it. The thing that I liked about him the most was this little X factor sparkle in his eye that he had. I don't know, I can't describe it any better than that except to say that he had something that I wanted, and it wasn't his wallet or his car or his girlfriend. I thought, wow, I wonder what that is. I mean, how do you get that? I'm not going to check it out because I was a checker-outer. I mean, I was a very keen observer of human behavior. And so I wanted to see where he came from. So I went to that meeting. This guy picked me up. His name was Berkeley C. He was from, he worked out of NSA. He was a spook. He was a spy back then. He was a Vietnamese translator who had gotten busted at a party for trying to chew the underwear off of some girl in his office. So he came by and he picked me up in this little Fiat Bertoni, and his hair with his big glasses, bottle glasses, and his hair was back. And he said, I'm here to take you to a meeting. I'm going, oh my God, I'm in trouble now, man. What is this guy all about? Berkeley. And he became my first sponsor because he was, he only had about 3 years. But I thought he was a god. I mean, how can you get 3 years of not drinking? How do you do that? And his sponsor had 7 years. It's unbelievable. How do you get there? I didn't have the tools for that. I tried, and I tried many, many times. I remember when I got out of spring group, I actually stayed for maybe 3 or 4 months clean, and then I thought, well, it probably wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of marijuana. I can do that. No, I can't handle anything that affects me from the neck up. I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. For me. And so I thought, how did this guy stay sober for 3 years? And he said, well, you got to do what we do. I said, okay. You got to go to meetings. You got to go to these A&A meetings. You have to read this literature. You have to read mostly the first 164 pages because that's the real basic text. And there's some stories in the back here about people like us that you may find yourself in, which is a good reason to have them. But the first 164 pages of this book it's poorly written by some drunk from New York who got struck spiritual, and he put together this book that is the text for our life today. The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an amazing, amazing thing. I believe it was divinely inspired. I believe that the information here came from a state of grace that I happen to be sharing now with the people that put that program together. My whole thing is that I had a problem with authority. And not just the authority, but the people who abused authority. Ooh, man. Because I remember those guards and those people in that place, and they weren't really very honest people. So I hated authority. My stepfather, who moved into my life when I was about 12, was a prison guard. Nice guy. Really nice guy. We got along famously. And he would beat me up pretty regularly. And so I would stick little sewing needles in the bottom of his hard rubber shoes, so that as he would walk over the course of a couple of weeks or so, they would start growing. And so that's how I was, because I was a little tiny guy and I couldn't fight. He just beat me up. I hated authority. I hated the abuse of authority. I hated teachers who didn't have their shit together, and I just hated it. Hate. And I figured that was justification enough to do everything I was doing. You guys made me do it. This culture, this screwed up American culture, and it's all fucked up. And here I am, pardon my language, actually the perfect product of this culture, and I'm hating everybody in it, and that works. If you're a hater, it works. It's a great way to stay loaded. Stay hating, man, because that'll keep you out there. And so I did. It almost did me in. Well, like a couple hours left. That's what happened. This guy told my story. I went up. I asked him. He told me. I came. And my life has not been the same since that time. That was a turning point in my life. I got in that car with Berkeley, and we went to a meeting, and he was crazy as shit. I mean, he was a nutcase, but he was a smart nutcase, and he knew where I was coming from, and he had that same sparkle in his eye. He had that little X factor that I'm going, man, this guy's telling the truth, And I wouldn't normally hang out with people like this, okay? But these people were telling the truth, and I knew the truth because I knew from not hearing the truth long enough what the truth was, kind of by a process of elimination, okay, well, this is the truth. What I've been doing all my life is lying, rationalizing, completely distorting things, and leaving out critical information in just about everything that I did. And so it worked for a while, and then it quit working, and that's what happened. I was there with nothing else to do. And then what happened was, and I don't know, I can't tell you how long after I'd come in it happened, but I had made a correlation between that moment in that green tile cell when I was on my knees naked in my own piss on a mattress, praying to God, and talking to Berkeley Cook, which was actually, that was 1970. I didn't come into the program in 1976. And that was June 10th of 1976, AA's birthday, by the way. And my wedding anniversary. And I thought, geez, they're celebrating me. Here I am. I arrived. The important thing about what I'm going to tell you next isn't so much that I think this is a way recovery works or that this is the way it should work for you, but this is the way it worked for me. I came in, I had sponsors like Berkeley. I had Berkeley as a sponsor for 5 years. He kept me busy. He said, okay, you're going to make coffee at 5 different meetings. And we're going to go every night, and sometimes a couple times a day, and then on weekends, we're just going to be in AA. I'm going, wow, really? He goes, yep, that's what we do. We're going to go to conventions and dances, and oh my God, you're going to have a wonderful time. I'm going, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And so he was there behind me, and I could go to him with stuff like, man, I don't know, man. My first marriage was falling apart. Actually, it was never put together. And I had 2 kids, and I was really concerned about what was going to happen with that. My wife was just a stone junkie from the streets of Washington, D.C., and she got pregnant and quit doing everything. With my daughter, who's now 39, she got pregnant. I said, God, if I get pregnant, maybe I can stop. Hey, that's a ticket. I'll get pregnant. I could go to him with anything, and I could say, look, man, I know you think I have my shit together and everything, but I don't. And there's some things going on in my life we really need to talk about. And he was there. He was always there. As a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, as a friend and a mentor, he was always there for me if I needed him. Any time of the night or day, I'd call him, he'd say, okay, let's go have coffee. And we would, and we'd talk, and he said, okay, now we're going to start working the steps that are laid out in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous for even the most stupid people in the world. And in your case, we're going to make some other exceptions. It drives us nuts, So he said, it works for nuts people too, if they have the capacity to be honest. Do you have the capacity to be honest? I go, yeah, I think so. More honest than I've ever been. And so I did that, and I got into the steps, and he worked me through the steps, as it's written in the book, not as a suggested kind of avenue of, maybe it should be done this way, as it's done in the book, and that's what I did. And lo and behold, I started getting sober. And I started getting that X factor, that sparkle in my eye, and I'm going, I'm getting this, man. I'm getting this. By the time I was 4, I had gotten myself out of a bunch of debt. I got my life kind of together. And I moved to Oregon from Annapolis, Maryland with my now wife, Ellen. And I got into the treatment field. I was a treatment professional. Some of you might see that in me. May have worn off. I was a Cracker Jack facilitator. I was an incredible tool in helping people find recovery in that setting. And I could really, really work with people. I could read them. I could see them. I was such a chameleon in my life that I could, get into you and go, oh, yeah. The problem is that I wasn't getting into me anymore, okay? I stopped getting into me, which is where the problem lies, right up here. I call this Radio Ric. All Ric, all the time. Here's a classic, Ric. You can only turn it down. You can't turn it off. And back then, it was running full blast. And I would go through this, I would go through this rationalization that if I had patients that were going to meetings, I couldn't go to the meetings. Well, I don't want to be around my patients at the meetings, And I had a little bit of an edge on them. I had some dynamics about this thing figured out that they probably weren't going to get. I was somebody, this is how I treated it. This isn't how all treatment professionals are. This is my trip. Because there's some wonderful people in that field that stayed there and haven't abused it and have been incredible lifesavers. But for me, it became maybe a little too much, too soon, too fast, I don't know. And it was usually in direct proportion of how little I felt about myself, that I really wanted to show you how big I was, and that was the problem. I wasn't dealing with me. And so the less and less I felt with this disease coming into my life, blaring, Radio Ric in quadraphonic sound, I couldn't hear this anymore. I couldn't hear that. I couldn't hear it. I could fake it. I could assimilate anything. Okay, I can put together just about anything you want. My whole life has been an installation piece, a performance piece. Really, I'm an artist. That's what I do now. I always have. But the thing is that I look back over my life and go, God, I was just all things to all people. That's all. Easy, We make acting and actor school look like amateurs. We are the best. We can act, man. We can put it on. Because we have to. My buzz depends on how well my performance is. I have to do that. And no matter what the setting is, on the job, in a relationship, I have to be the best possible thing I can be. And so I would go into that whole thing of, okay, I'm going to give you what I think you want to see. I don't know if any of you wanted to see this tonight, but quite frankly, I'm okay with it. There was a time when I wouldn't be. I would go, geez, how am I supposed to act? What am I going to do? I'd go to, Polly, what am I going to do? I would go, all right, and I would have to come up with some kind of a performance. Well, going back to what those guys taught me about working through the steps and doing the steps, and I'm going to keep going back to that because working these steps in order, in sequence, is going to save your life. Working it in a piecemeal fashion and maybe kind of an arbitrary interpretation of what they really are is going to kill you. If you have my disease, it will kill you. This is a lethal disease. I'm a joker, and oh gosh, I can be funny. I have a disease that killed my brother. He froze to death on the streets of Bangor, Maine, a wet brain. 10 years my junior. I did everything I could to get him into this program when I was a professional, And so we lost him. And all the men on the paternal side of my family dead at 45. 45. Well, I didn't expect to get past 25 when I was out there. So they're doing okay. 45, that's good, And so this is a tragic killer disease. And so I don't treat it or the program with disrespect. I respect what this disease can do. Just like if you're standing out there in the corner and a semi drives by, you're not going to step out in front of it, probably, unless you're really in bad shape. But most of us just have a lot of respect for what could happen there. And that's how I treat this disease. That's how I treat recovery. My recovery is the most important thing in my life. The most important today. I was lucky to make it back after I relapsed from being sober for almost 11 years. And it was 5 minutes? 6. Okay. I'll start wrapping it up. Where was it?
Relapse.
Oh yeah, relapse. Relapse is not part of recovery. Okay? It's not a part of recovery. It was a part of my recovery. It was a part of my disease that caused me to go out and was lucky enough to come back in a state of grace as a newcomer when I came back and gather up all the things that I threw away when I went out and get them back after doing the same things that I did when I first came in. That's what it takes. If that's what's happened to you, I hope you stay. I heard young man talking tonight about getting honest about his sobriety date and how important it was for him to get honest about. He wasn't really sober for as long as he had been talking about, and that maybe it was time to get honest. Well, he saved his own life. I saved my own life by coming back, realizing I wasn't treatment professional material and going on with my life as an artist. And today, I have the most wonderful life you can imagine. I have a studio, 10 acres out in Sky Valley. I have the best wife in the world. They call her Saint Ellen because she's married to me. I don't get it. And I have an abundance of things, but I have my health. Now, last year at this time, I was almost dead because I started isolating again. Isolation is my problem, and this is one of them. I'm going to wrap it up with this. If you're like me, you can isolate in a room full of people and be very much alone. But if you're really isolated and you're not really taking care of yourself, you can end up really sick without even picking up a drink. And that's untreated alcoholism. My meetings had lapped off. I wasn't doing a lot of that. I got sick. I had a really bad bronchial thing. Ended up in Desert Regional over here, nearly dead from just not taking care of myself. Sober. You can get there. I hope that doesn't happen to you. I'm a meeting goer. I'm a meeting maker. I'm a sponsor. I'm a sponsee. I work the steps. I pray. The same things I did when I first came in. Those are the tools, and you can ask a woman who's taken 36 years, and she's doing the same thing. That's what we do. We pray, we go to meetings, we help the next alcoholic, and then we deal with the other things in life. Because most of the things you're worried about right now will take care of themselves. The alcoholism won't. Thank you.